In the year 2147, humanity had reached farther into space than ever before. The stars were no longer just distant lights. They were destinations. Deep space exploration had become a reality, and probes were sent to study planets far beyond Earth's solar system. One such probe, named Erebus *, was launched decades earlier and had been traveling silently through the void for years. Its mission was simple: search for signs of life. One day, while orbiting a distant exoplanet called Kepler-62 Erebus * detected something unusual. It picked up a faint signal, weak but deliberate. At first, scientists thought it might be random noise, but when they analyzed the data more closely, they realized it wasn't ordinary. The signal contained patterns that matched human DNA sequences. This discovery shocked everyone. How could an alien signal have anything to do with humans? The news spread quickly, and soon, a research vessel named Odyssey * was dispatched to investigate. On board the ship was Dr. Alan Carter, a quiet but brilliant xenobiologist who had spent most of his life studying extraterrestrial life. He was joined by Lieutenant Rachel Monroe, a tough and disciplined military officer whose job was to keep the crew safe. Together, they formed part of a small team tasked with uncovering the mystery of the signal. As the Odyssey * approached Kepler-62 Alan couldn't shake the feeling that something about this mission felt wrong. The signal was strange, almost too perfect. It didn't seem natural. "It's like it knows we're coming," he said one evening as he stared at the glowing screens in the lab. Rachel, standing nearby, crossed her arms. "Don't overthink it," she replied firmly. "We'll figure it out when we get there." Kepler-62 was unlike any planet Alan had studied before. From orbit, it looked breathtakingly beautiful. Thick green forests covered much of its surface, interrupted only by shimmering oceans and towering mountain ranges. The atmosphere was breathable, making it even more intriguing. But despite its beauty, there was an unsettling quality to the planet. Something about it felt off. When the landing team touched down, they immediately noticed how quiet it was. There were no birds chirping or insects buzzing, just an eerie stillness. The air smelled sweet, almost floral, but it made Alan uneasy. "This place is too perfect," he muttered under his breath as he scanned the area with his equipment. The team set up a base near the landing site and began exploring. Not far from their camp, they stumbled upon ruins half buried in vines and moss. The structures were massive, made of smooth gray stone, and covered in intricate carvings. As they examined the carvings, Emily Blake, the team's biologist, pointed out something odd. "Look at this," she said, tracing her finger along the grooves. "These figures, they look human." Alan leaned closer to inspect the images. Sure enough, the carvings depicted humans, but not as they were now. Instead, they showed humans as hunters, armed with advanced tools and weapons, chasing down other creatures. Some of the scenes were violent, showing humans triumphing over beasts far larger than themselves. "This isn't just art," Alan said slowly. "It's a message, a warning." Before anyone could respond, a sudden rustling sound came from the trees. Everyone froze, their eyes darting toward the forest. Whatever was out there was watching them. And it didn't feel friendly. The team stood frozen, their hearts pounding as the rustling in the trees grew louder. Shadows moved between the trunks, quick and silent. Alan tightened his grip on his scanner, while Rachel instinctively raised her rifle, scanning the edges of the forest. "Stay close," she ordered in a low voice. No one argued. The air felt heavier now, charged with tension. Suddenly, something darted out from the underbrush, a flash of black fur and sharp teeth. It was fast, almost too fast to see clearly. Rachel fired a warning shot into the air, and the creature retreated just as quickly, disappearing back into the shadows. But the damage was done. The team was shaken, their sense of security shattered. What was that? Emily whispered, clutching her arm as if trying to steady herself. I don't know, Rachel replied sharply, her eyes still locked on the tree line. But it's not leaving us alone. Sam Dawson, the team's engineer, stepped forward, holding up a portable motion detector. We've got movement all around us, he said grimly. Whatever it is, we're surrounded. Rachel glanced at Alan, who looked pale but determined. We need to get back to the shuttle, she said firmly. Now. Alan hesitated. Not yet, he argued. These ruins, they're important. If we leave now, we might miss our only chance to understand what's going on here. Rachel glared at him. And if we stay, we might not survive long enough to care. Before they could argue further, another sound broke the silence. This time closer. A low growl echoed through the forest, followed by a series of clicks that sent chills down everyone's spines. The noises seemed almost deliberate, like the creatures were communicating. Or mocking them. Fine, Rachel snapped. 10 more minutes. Then we move out, whether you like it or not. The team returned to the ruins, working quickly to gather as much data as possible. Alan focused on the carvings, snapping photos and running scans, while Emily collected samples of the moss and vines covering the stones. Sam kept watch, his hands trembling slightly as he held the motion detector. Every few seconds, he'd glance nervously toward the trees. As they worked, the growls and clicks grew louder, more aggressive. Whatever was out there was getting bolder. Then, without warning, one of the creatures lunged from the shadows, heading straight for Sam. He barely had time to react before Rachel fired her rifle, the blast striking the creature's shoulder. It let out an ear-piercing shriek and retreated, but not before leaving deep claw marks on the ground. We're out of time, Rachel said, her voice tight with urgency. Grab what you can and fall back. They didn't need to be told twice. Alan stuffed his equipment into his pack, and Emily hurriedly sealed her sample containers. As they ran back toward the shuttle, the forest seemed to come alive around them. Shapes darted between the trees, keeping pace with the group. The creatures weren't attacking directly, but their presence was suffocating. When they finally reached the shuttle, Rachel slammed the door shut behind them, breathing hard. That was too close, she muttered, checking her rifle. Alan sank into a seat, his mind racing. Did you see it? He asked, looking at Rachel. The way it moved, it wasn't natural. Those things are engineered. Emily nodded, her face pale. I noticed something else, too. The claw marks. They're too precise, almost surgical. Like they're designed to test us. Rachel frowned. Test us? What do you mean? Alan leaned forward, his expression grave. Think about it. The signal led us here. The ruins show humans as hunters. And now these creatures, they're not just animals. They're part of something bigger. Someone, or something, wants to see how we handle this. The cabin fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Outside, the forest loomed dark and menacing, hiding secrets none of them were ready to face. But one thing was clear. They weren't alone on Kepler 62, and whatever was watching them wasn't done yet. Back at the shuttle, the team tried to regroup, but the tension was thick. The creatures hadn't followed them, but no one felt safe. Rachel paced back and forth, her rifle slung over her shoulder, while Alan sat hunched over his scanner, reviewing the data they'd collected. Emily worked quietly in a corner, examining the moss and vine samples she'd gathered from the ruins. Sam tinkered with the motion detector, muttering under his breath about how unreliable it was. We can't stay here, Rachel said finally, breaking the silence. If those things come back, and they will, we're sitting ducks. Alan looked up, his face pale but resolute. We need more answers. Those ruins, they're the key. If we leave now, we'll never understand what's going on. Rachel clenched her fists. And if we stay, we might not live long enough to care. Survival comes first, Alan. Before Alan could argue, Emily spoke up. She's right. But so are you, Alan. We can't just run. These creatures, They're not random. They're too smart, too calculated. Someone put them here for a reason. Sam nodded, holding up the motion detector. And they're still out there. Look at this. He pointed to the screen, which showed multiple blips moving around the shuttle. They're circling us. The team exchanged uneasy glances. Whatever these creatures were, they weren't giving up. The thought of being hunted made everyone restless, but Alan refused to back down. Fine, he said. We'll move deeper into the ruins. There might be shelter, or even something that can help us fight back. Rachel hesitated, then sighed. All right, but we stick together. No splitting up. With that, the team packed up their gear and headed back toward the ruins. The forest was darker now, the sun sinking lower in the sky. Shadows stretched long across the ground, making every tree look like a lurking predator. The growls and clicks had grown quieter, almost as if the creatures were waiting for the right moment to strike. When they reached the ruins, Alan noticed something he'd missed before, a narrow passageway leading underground. The entrance was partially hidden by vines, but the carvings above it were unmistakable. They depicted humans standing victorious over fallen beasts, their weapons raised high. This way, Alan said, pointing toward the passage. It might lead somewhere safer. Rachel didn't look convinced, but she motioned for the others to follow. As they descended into the darkness, Sam used a portable light to illuminate the path. The air grew cooler, and the walls were lined with more carvings, some showing humans building tools, others showing them hunting in groups. Then, Emily stopped suddenly. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. Everyone froze. At first, there was only silence. Then came a faint hum, low and steady, coming from deeper within the passage. It wasn't natural. It sounded mechanical. "Let's check it out," Alan said, though his voice wavered slightly. As they moved forward, the hum grew louder. Soon, they found themselves in a large chamber lit by bioluminescent fungi clinging to the ceiling. In the center of the room stood a monolith, its surface covered in intricate designs. Alan approached cautiously, running his hand over the smooth stone. The carvings told a story of humans creating the creatures that now hunted them. "These things, they're bioengineered," Alan said, his voice trembling. "They're designed to test us, to see if we're strong enough to survive." Before anyone could respond, a deafening roar echoed through the chamber. The team spun around just in time to see several pairs of glowing eyes staring at them from the shadows. The creatures had found them. "Get behind me," Rachel shouted, raising her rifle. But the creatures didn't attack right away. They circled the group, their movements fluid and deliberate. It was clear they were toying with their prey. "We need a plan," Sam said urgently, pulling out a small device from his pack. "I can rig this to make some noise, maybe confuse them." "Do it," Rachel ordered, keeping her rifle trained on the nearest creature. As Sam worked, Alan studied the monolith again. Something about it felt important, like it held the key to stopping the creatures. But time was running out. The hunters were closing in, and the team was dangerously outnumbered. The creatures moved closer, their glowing eyes piercing through the dim light of the chamber. Rachel kept her rifle aimed at the nearest one, her finger hovering over the trigger. "Hold your ground," she shouted, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. The team stood back to back, forming a tight circle as the hunters closed in. Sam was crouched on the ground, fiddling with a small device he'd pulled from his pack. "Almost done," he muttered, his hands shaking but determined. Alan, meanwhile, couldn't take his eyes off the monolith. Something about it felt alive. He reached out and touched its surface again, his fingers brushing against the intricate carvings. Suddenly, the hum in the chamber grew louder, vibrating through the air. "What did you do?" Rachel snapped, glancing at Alan for a split second. "I didn't do anything," Alan replied, stepping back. But the monolith wasn't idle anymore. Faint lines of light began to glow along its surface, pulsing like a heartbeat. The creatures paused, their heads tilting as if they were confused. or listening. Emily gasped. It's communicating with them. Before anyone could react, Sam stood up, holding the rigged device in his hand. I'm ready, he said. This should mess with their senses. It won't stop them, but it might buy us some time. Do it, Rachel ordered without hesitation. Sam pressed a button on the device, and a high-pitched whine filled the chamber. The creatures recoiled, their glowing eyes flickering as they let out ear-piercing shrieks. For a moment, chaos reigned. Rachel took advantage of their confusion, firing her rifle at the closest hunter. The shot hit its mark, and the creature stumbled back, snarling in pain. Move, Rachel yelled, gesturing toward a narrow tunnel at the far end of the chamber. The team didn't need to be told twice. They sprinted toward the opening, the hunters recovering quickly and giving chase. The tunnel was dark and claustrophobic, forcing them to run single file. Alan led the way, his scanner lighting up the path ahead. Behind him, Emily tripped over a loose rock, falling to her knees. Before she could get up, one of the creatures lunged at her, its claws slashing through the air. Emily, Alan shouted, turning back. But Rachel was already there. With a swift motion, she grabbed Emily by the arm and yanked her to her feet, shoving her forward. Keep moving, Rachel barked, firing another shot to drive the creature back. The group emerged from the tunnel into a larger cavern, its ceiling lost in shadow. The air was damp, and the sound of dripping water echoed around them. In the center of the cavern stood what looked like a control terminal, an ancient piece of technology covered in dust and moss. This has to be it, Alan said, rushing toward the terminal. If we can activate it, maybe we can shut those things down. But how? Emily asked, clutching her side where the creature had grazed her. Blood seeped through her fingers, but she ignored the pain. Just give me a minute, Alan replied, his fingers flying over the strange interface. The terminal lit up, responding to his touch. Lines of alien text scrolled across the screen, too fast for him to read. Rachel and Sam stood guard, their weapons trained on the tunnel. The hunters were close, too close. Their growls reverberated through the cavern, growing louder with each passing second. We're out of time, Sam shouted, backing away from the tunnel as the first creature appeared, its teeth bared. Hold them off, Alan yelled, his voice desperate. I almost have it. Rachel fired repeatedly, forcing the creatures to retreat momentarily. Sam threw a makeshift explosive into the tunnel, creating a temporary barrier. The explosion shook the cavern, sending rocks tumbling from the ceiling. Finally, the terminal emitted a soft chime. Alan let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Got it, he exclaimed. I've activated something. It's disrupting their coordination. The effect was immediate. The creatures hesitated, their movements becoming erratic. Some turned on each other, while others fled into the shadows. The team watched in stunned silence as the hunters disappeared, leaving behind only eerie silence. But their relief was short-lived. The ground beneath them began to tremble, and the walls of the cavern started to crack. We need to go. Now, Rachel ordered. As they ran back toward the surface, the cavern collapsed behind them, sealing whatever secrets lay within. When they finally emerged into the cool night air, the Odyssey descended from the sky to retrieve them. Safe aboard the ship, the team stared back at Kepler 62F, now a distant speck in the void. They had survived. But at what cost? Back aboard the Odyssey, the team tried to process what had happened. The ship's engines hummed softly as it drifted through space, leaving Kepler 62 far behind. Alan sat in the lab, staring at the data he'd salvaged from the control terminal. His hands trembled slightly as he scrolled through lines of alien text and fragmented images. Emily rested nearby, her wound bandaged but still throbbing with pain. Rachel paced the room, her rifle slung over her shoulder, while Sam worked on repairing the damaged equipment they'd brought back. What did you find? Rachel asked finally, breaking the silence. Alan hesitated before answering. It's complicated, he said slowly. The terminal was part of a system, an ancient one. Whoever built it created those creatures as tests. They were designed to evaluate us, to see if humanity is worthy of something. Worthy of what? Sam asked, looking up from his work. That's the problem, Alan admitted. I don't know, but based on the carvings and the data, it seems like this wasn't just about survival. It was about proving we're capable of adapting, fighting back, and thinking under pressure. Rachel frowned. So we passed. Is that why the creatures stopped attacking? Alan shook his head. Not exactly. The system was disrupted when I activated the terminal, but that doesn't mean the test is over. We might have only delayed whatever comes next. Emily winced as she shifted in her seat. You think there's more? Another layer to this. I'm sure of it, Alan replied grimly. This feels too big to end here. Those ruins, the signal, the hunters, they're all connected. Whatever civilization set this up isn't done watching us. Rachel crossed her arms, her expression hardening. Then we need to be ready. If there's another round, we can't afford to be caught off guard again. Sam nodded in agreement. We should analyze everything we brought back. The samples, the data, even the footage from our helmets. There might be clues we missed. For hours, the team worked tirelessly, piecing together fragments of information. Alan focused on decoding the alien text, while Emily examined the moss and vine samples under a microscope. Sam repaired the motion detector, adding new features to make it more reliable. Rachel kept watch, standing by the window as if expecting the creatures to reappear. As dawn broke over the ship's artificial horizon, Alan made a startling discovery. Hidden within the data was a message, not in words, but in patterns. When he overlaid the patterns onto a star map, they formed coordinates pointing to another location deep in uncharted space. We're not done, Alan said quietly, showing the others the map. This is where we need to go next. Rachel studied the coordinates, her jaw tightening. Are you sure about this? We barely made it out last time. I'm sure, Alan replied firmly. If we want answers, if we want to understand why we were tested, we have to follow this trail. It's not just about us anymore. This could affect all of humanity. Emily leaned forward, her curiosity outweighing her fear. What happens if we ignore it? What if we just go home? Alan looked at her, his expression grave. Then we'll never know what's out there, or what they plan to do next. And if we walk away now, we might lose our chance to prove ourselves. Rachel sighed, rubbing her temples. All right, we'll go. But this time, we prepare better. No more running blind into danger. The team agreed, their resolve strengthening despite the uncertainty ahead. As the *Odyssey* adjusted its course toward the new coordinates, Alan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being washed. The ancient civilization that had created the hunters wasn't gone. It was waiting, observing every move they made. And somewhere, deep in the darkness of space, the next challenge awaited. The journey to the new coordinates was tense. Days passed in silence as the *Odyssey* drifted through the vast emptiness of space. The team spent most of their time preparing for what lay ahead. Alan pored over the data, searching for any clue that might give them an edge. Emily worked tirelessly in the lab, analyzing the samples they'd collected from Kepler-62. Sam built traps and reinforced their equipment, determined to be ready for anything. Rachel trained the team, running drills to ensure they could handle themselves in a fight. As they approached the destination, the ship's sensors picked up something unusual. A massive structure floating in the void. It looked like a station, ancient and crumbling, its surface covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly. The design was alien, yet familiar. It reminded Alan of the ruins on Kepler-62. This is it, Alan said, staring at the screen. This has to be where the trail leads. Rachel nodded, her hand resting on her rifle. "Let's suit up. We don't know what's waiting for us." The team boarded a shuttle and descended toward the structure. As they drew closer, the scale of it became clear. It was enormous, larger than any human-made station. The surface was scarred with age, but it still radiated power. When they landed, the airlock hissed open, revealing a dark corridor lined with glowing panels. "Stay alert," Rachel whispered, leading the way. Her rifle was raised, scanning the shadows. The others followed closely, their footsteps echoing in the silence. The deeper they went, the more unsettling it became. The walls were covered in carvings, images of humans battling creatures, building tools, and conquering challenges. But there was something new this time. Depictions of humans standing alongside other beings, working together. It was a stark contrast to the violent scenes they'd seen before. "What does this mean?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I think it's showing us the end goal," Alan replied. "If we pass the tests, we're meant to join them, to become part of something greater." Before anyone could respond, a low rumble shook the station. The lights flickered, and the glow from the panels dimmed. Then came the sound. Growls and clicks, eerily similar to the ones they'd heard on Kepler-62. "They're here," Sam said, gripping his weapon tightly. The creatures appeared moments later, emerging from the shadows. They were different this time, larger, faster, and more aggressive. Their eyes glowed brighter, and their movements were almost mechanical, as if they had been upgraded. "We can't fight them all," Emily shouted as the hunters closed in. "Retreat," Rachel ordered, firing her rifle to hold them back. The team backed away, searching for cover, but the corridor offered little protection. Alan's mind raced. He remembered the terminal on Kepler-62, the way it had disrupted the creatures. "There has to be a control system here," he yelled. "We need to find it." Rachel nodded. "Go. We'll hold them off." Alan sprinted down the corridor, following the faint hum of energy. Behind him, Rachel and Sam fired repeatedly, driving the creatures back. Emily stayed close to Alan, clutching her side as she limped along. Finally, Alan found what he was looking for, a central chamber filled with glowing consoles. He rushed to the largest one, his fingers flying over the interface. The symbols were alien, but the patterns were familiar. He activated the system, and the hum grew louder. "Get back," Alan shouted. The others ran to join him just as the system surged to life. A wave of energy rippled through the station, knocking the creatures off their feet. Their glowing eyes dimmed, and they collapsed, unmoving. For a moment, there was silence. Then a voice spoke, not aloud, but in their minds. It was calm, yet powerful. "You have proven your resilience. You have adapted. You have survived. Humanity will be watched no longer. You are ready." The message faded, leaving the team stunned. The station began to power down, its lights dimming until only darkness remained. Rachel broke the silence. "Is that it? Are we done?" Ellen nodded slowly. "I think so. Whatever they wanted to see, we showed them." As they made their way back to the shuttle, the weight of what had happened settled over them. They had faced unimaginable danger and emerged victorious. But they knew one thing for certain. Humanity's place in the universe had changed forever. Back aboard the Odyssey *, the team gathered in the main cabin, their faces a mix of exhaustion and disbelief. The station was now a distant speck behind them, its glow fading into the endless void of space. For the first time in days, they allowed themselves to breathe, really breathe. But the questions lingered, heavy and unanswered. "What happens now?" Emily asked, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant, as if she wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. Alan leaned back in his chair, staring at the star map displayed on the screen. "I don't know," he admitted. "The message said we're ready, but ready for what? Are we supposed to wait for contact? Or are we meant to find them ourselves?" Rachel crossed her arms, her expression thoughtful. Maybe it doesn't matter. Whatever that test was, we passed. Humanity's been given a chance to prove we're more than just survivors. We're builders, thinkers, fighters. That has to count for something. Sam nodded, though his hands fidgeted with a loose wire from his toolkit. Still, it feels like we've only scratched the surface. Those ruins, the hunters, the station, they're all part of something bigger. What if there's more out there? More tests, more challenges. Ellen glanced at him, his brow furrowed. There probably is. But for now, we've done what we set out to do. We followed the trail, faced the unknown, and came out alive. That's enough. Emily winced as she shifted in her seat, the pain in her side still sharp despite the medical treatment. Do you think they'll come back? The hunters, or whoever sent them? No, Alan said firmly. The message was clear. They're done watching us. For now, at least. This chapter is over. Rachel walked over to the window, gazing out at the stars. Then let's focus on what's next. If humanity's been given a chance, we need to make the most of it. We can't waste this. The others fell silent, each lost in their own thoughts. The enormity of what they'd accomplished, and what it might mean for the future, was overwhelming. They had proven that humans were capable of adapting, fighting, and thinking under pressure. They had shown resilience, determination, and teamwork. And in doing so, they had earned the title of apex predator, not just on Earth, but in the eyes of an ancient, mysterious civilization. As the Odyssey continued its journey through the stars, Alan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The universe was vast, filled with mysteries they could barely imagine. But for the first time, humanity wasn't just looking up at the stars. It was reaching for them, ready to take its place among the cosmos. We'll keep exploring, Alan said finally, his voice steady. If there's more out there, if there's another signal, another challenge, we'll face it, together. Rachel turned to look at him, a faint smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Then let's get to work. There's a whole galaxy waiting for us. The team nodded, their resolve stronger than ever. They had survived the hunters, uncovered the secrets of the ruins, and stood before the ancient station that had judged them worthy. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it head-on, as humans, as explorers, and as survivors. And somewhere, deep in the darkness of space, the ancient civilization watched, satisfied. Humanity had proven itself. The test was over, but the journey was just beginning.